Good evening. Welcome everybody to the November 18th regular session meeting. Start with item A, call to order and announce a quorum is present. Madam Secretary, quorum is present.
Yes.
Moves us into item B, invocation and pledge. Dre Clark, student ministry pastor for Champion Forest Baptist Church.
Privileged to be here today. Let's pray together to start off this meeting. Father, we thank you so much just for an opportunity we have to come together. God, as a city, as people who stand unified. God, we know that you pray for unity, God, and that is something that you enjoy in your creation, God. So may tonight be a night of unity, may it be a night of love, may it be a night of leadership and courage and boldness as we progress forward in what you have for this city. So thank you so much for your son, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dre. Item C, presentation of Employee of the Month. Austin Blee, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, it is with great pride that I get to introduce tonight to the November 2019 Employee of the Month Award to Otelia Castro. Otelia is one of our deputy court clerks that never lets the stress of the job affect her demeanor. She's always pleasant and ready to take on any challenges that come her way. She's dependable, very conscientious, and strives to do her best, always staying humble and kind. Recently, she's really pitched in to help cover the gaps in the court department. Being down one employee in the department and having another employee out for an extended period of time really put a crunch in the department. When you have two people out in a department of four, that really takes a toll. So as the dedicated employee that she is, Otelia pushed harder to ensure the daily tasks were handled, never once complaining, dealing with the defendants in the same courteous way she always does. Otelia takes great pride in her job, and it is a key part to the court running smoothly. She is truly an asset to the court and the city of Jersey Village. As her coworker who nominated her for this award said, it is obvious that our coworkers enjoy working with her as much as I do. Congratulations, Otelia, and thank you for all you do for Jersey Village.
Thank you.
All right, item D, citizen comments. Any person who desires to address City Council regarding an item on the agenda will be heard at this time. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda, city staff and council members are not allowed to discuss the subject. Each person is limited to 5 minutes for comments to the City Council. First card I have is Mark Malloy.
Hi, my name's Mark Malloy, live at 7803 Hamilton Circle, past City Council member, the City of Jersey Village, Texas. Citizens' comments for the 11/18/2018 City Council regular meeting. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the City Secretary a permanent record of the meeting. And I'm back to talk about the large amounts of money that the city is spending on the municipal golf course. And I read a lot of this at the previous meeting, so I'm not going to read it because I'm not going to have time to get the rest of it read. Anyway, to me it looks as though the most prized possession, most important piece of property in the city that current and past city governments fought for and have been in control to make decisions for, above all else in the Jersey Village community, is the city government purchased, still being paid for by the Jersey Village taxpayers, and will be for many years into the future, city-operated municipal golf course. The golf course estimated 126-acre land area has been determined through two separate very expensive engineering studies, one done in the early 2000s and one done after the 2016 tax day flood, to be a significant contributor of stormwater sheet flow runoff flooding to residential homes along Rio Grande Street, Wall Street, and other streets in the area. The current and past city governments have shown through their actions that the main priority concern is to keep the golf course no matter how much taxpayer money and other city revenue is spent on the estimated 126-acre fenced-in, extremely manicured, heavily chemically applicated, heavily watered, extremely taxpayer-subsidized land area that the taxpayers do not have access to unless they are willing to pay a greens fee or a driving range fee. The very ineffective, in my belief, earthen berm that the city plans to build sometime in the future along the golf course land parameter running along Rio Grande Street is just a city government gesture to the community to say, here we tried to stop the flooding problem. If the Jersey Village community paid attention and took a very hard look at the city government's berm design, they would see that the berm elevation height has been lowered as much as possible from the original elevation height that was determined to be effective by both city-hired engineering consultants. The reason this was done, I believe, by the Jersey Village city government was their concern for the damage that would be caused to the golf course by the stormwater, and the most important thing would be how long would the course be unplayable, because that is in my belief, the city government's most important concern. The golf course land area, I believe, would serve the community much better if it was repurposed into a large stormwater retention basin that could also be utilized as a low-maintenance park for all the Jersey Village community to use and enjoy. There have been several golf courses in the Houston area that have or are in the process of being repurposed in the way I have just talked about. The city government has said in the past that Harris County is not interested in building more stormwater retention basins. I'm having a hard time believing that to be the case with all the recent stormwater flooding that has caused millions and billions of dollars of property loss and devastation in the Harris County and surrounding area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Carrie Lawrence.
Good evening, Mayor Mitchum, council members, and city manager, please. My name is Carrie Lawrence. I live on Ockgill Street. I recently moved here from Jersey Drive. First, I want to thank you all for your work that you do for the city. When I decided to put my house on the market a few months ago, I first tried to think of where else I'd want to live. I searched areas close to Jersey Village, the Cypress area, another town out in the country. I looked at all options, but I couldn't imagine living anywhere but right here. I have lived in Jersey Village for 22 years. My parents moved to Jersey Village in 1978, and the most important draw was the golf course. At that time, my father worked for Cameron Iron Works, and Cameron owned the golf course. Over time, it changed hands and eventually was bought by the city. But during the entire time, the golf course was my father's home away from home. He started having heart issues in his 50s, and after an early retirement, the golf course became his daily routine. He went almost every day, including his last day at the age of 83. Our family has always said if it wasn't for the golf course, he would have left this earth much earlier. After every surgery, his goal was to build his strength so that he could play golf again. I've never really followed in my father's footsteps and played golf. However, I recently had several enjoyable experiences on the golf course. I am on the board of directors and the programs coordinator for the Jersey Village Senior Outreach. We offer a variety of activities to our members every week to provide social, educational, and wellness opportunities. In fact, this morning, a group of people made mosaic trivets. Our senior group has found the golf course to be very accommodating to some of our activities. Every Friday, a group of seniors go up to the golf course for coffee and to chat about current events, technology, household needs, and anything they want to talk about. Many times I hear people say that they've never been to the golf course. I think there are many residents that would be surprised that they could go to have lunch at the grill or go have a drink after work, or that there's other things to do besides playing a round of golf. You can hit a bucket of balls, you can try putting, or now there's a great short game practice area. Several months ago, we offered a tour of the golf course for our members, led by Matt Jones and Jennifer Johnson. The members drove around and viewed our beautiful course. Matt and Jennifer did a wonderful job explaining all they do to make it an enjoyable but challenging course. Everyone was very impressed with the details that they have been implementing to increase its beauty and make it a competitive golf course. A few weeks ago, we held, with the help of Rod Erskine, we put together a golf classic. 28 seniors played in a 9-hole scramble. It was a beautiful day, and with the awesome help of Jennifer and Matt, everyone had a wonderful time. Most of the people that played had never played golf before, and since that day, the vast majority have said they want to continue learning and practicing their game. We had a leader for each team that was a JV resident and plays often. Jersey Village has many amenities for its diverse population. Some I use, some I don't. Just because I don't use something doesn't mean I want it to go away. It makes for a well-rounded community. I doubt I will ever be able to get as good at golf as my father was. He hit a hole-in-one twice at Jersey Meadows, but I am looking forward to spending time learning and improving my game. But even if I don't, I feel the golf course adds much-needed value to our residents and community. Most of you have probably been on the golf course, but if not, I'm sure Matt and Jennifer would be happy to take you for a ride. It is a very well-maintained, peaceful, and beautiful course. Thank you for the work that you do to make Jersey Village a place to be proud of.
Thank you, Gary. Michael Stembridge.
Good evening. Michael Stembridge, 15422 Jersey Drive. It is taxation without representation when we and the rest of East Jersey must pay municipal taxes to Jersey Village as tax day flooders so that other residents on different streets can have elevations, but we ask for them for 4 years and still are told no. The city pays a portion of each elevation with taxes paid by JV residents as well as East Jersey residents who are on the original elevations list as well as the second round list, but then taken off completely in favor of other homes. Now we're told the only offer available is a completely non-FEMA one with a prospective developer so that our homes will be leveled and the new ones built in their place with new residents. We were told you can't even perform a redo in a floodway. So how can you tear down and develop one, and why would a developer want to incur such a legal liability in the floodplain or the floodway? Once more concrete is poured upstream or a future natural disaster occurs. We beg you all for an elevation for 4 years, and so have our neighbors on East Jersey. We're not alone. And now we see multiple Planet 3 elevation signs dotting yards on West Jersey between Lakeview and Senate and on Acapulco. Y'all don't know what it's like to really flood with it up to your waist and your knees. And now city tax dollars are being spent on gleaming, golden, brand new city halls, new golf course convention centers, dog parks, splash pads, and a brand new fleet of golf carts. I can't count how many there are. Not to mention new city entrance signs. The city has lost its priorities by refusing to provide those of us on East Jersey with elevations and by simultaneously expecting the rest of the city's people to pay the city's portion of the chosen, hand-picked, fortunate names getting elevations, while many who flood still have been told they're not getting elevations. Jersey Village has won transparency awards lately. But how is it transparent when one set of residents is given their dream an elevation, yet another set foots the city's portion bill and is at the same time told no elevations? Please don't level our block. Please. Most of us living there don't possess the money required to relocate. We don't have it. Not like the rich ones, so that the whole block can be gentrified and summarily leveled to sweep us all out and bring in the wealthy. Then you compound that with the flood PTSD we already have on East Jersey, which flooded the worst in tax day, probably, and the fear becomes exponential. But then, you forget, please don't forget, the signs, the James Singleton, Gary Wubenhorst, Bobby Warren, Andy Mitchum, Greg Holden signs that we have filled our yards with for you over the years on East Jersey.
Thank you, Mike. Curtis Haverty.
Hello, my name is Curtis Haverty, and I live on 15405 Ashburton Drive. And I've been a member where you've sat before, and I've also lived in Jersey Village for 29 years. And I'm not here to complain or any of that. I want to let you know about a department that works for you, that you fund, that's phenomenal, and that's your Jersey Village Volunteer Fire Department. Last month, there was a house fire at 7:45 in the morning, and it got toned out at 7:45, and at 7:50, the first fire truck, 3540, rolled up in front of that house. That's 5 minutes. That's phenomenal. Flames were coming out of the roof and on one side. And a lot goes on, and I won't go into all the technical details, but those first few minutes, a lot goes on for the safety of the people inside and the firefighters. Utilities are shut off, a fast perimeter search is done, info is gathered about people that might be inside as to whether firefighters need to risk their life going in or whether they don't have to do that. Water is drawn from a hydrant, run through the pump, and water is placed on the building. All that is about a third of what really goes on, but I wanted to get you a feel for that. It was told that the people were gone, but they suspected there was a dog inside. And so your chief and another firefighter kicked in the front door and made a very fast search of the house, found no dog, but found that the fire had broken through the roof and water was being applied to that particular fire. I'm not a firefighter, I'm part of the EMT crew, and we come just a few minutes later. Our job is to go in last and park so we can leave in a hurry in case a firefighter or somebody in the house is severely injured. But we get the bird's eye view of what's going on because we're just ready. We're not doing anything, we're ready. And to see what was going on at that time was just truly amazing. You've got pictures of our very newest firefighter, just became a firefighter, qualified, able to pull a hose a couple of months ago. You see pictures of our most senior firefighter. He's got his hand in a kind of a cast. He's kind of the command person. You see pictures of the chief. He comes out hot and sweaty, okay? You see pictures of a cadet that started here in high school, is a firefighter in another fire department, but still comes here and volunteers. And then lastly, you see pictures of your friends and neighbors that come to fight these fires. And I want to tell you, you know how you can tell who the firefighters are? Well, when the building's on fire and everybody's running away, they're the ones that are running there, okay? And so the fire was extinguished. It was investigated as to what caused the fire. Your friends and neighbors gave up their Saturday. It finally finished, all of the cleanup and everything, about 12:30. Actually, one of the people there is on council. Doesn't look like he's doing much, but he's there actually in charge of the pumping apparatus, which is fairly complex. The next open house you can look at it. It's got about 35 gauges and about 8 or 10 valves, and when they say I need 110 pounds on hose number 1 at 50 cubic feet per second, he knows how to do that. So he's there. He'll say he's the smartest one, but he's just there because of that. So, you know, I want you to know that this department you all talk about when you're running for office, yeah, I support the fire department, et cetera. But it really does make a difference to our neighbors, and it's manned at night by volunteers and on the weekends, and they're your neighbors and they're your friends, and I wanted you to know about it because there's some good news about this city that you may not hear about, and I just wanted to tell you about it, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Curtis. Mayor Lee Beasley.
Hi, I'm Marilee Beasley, and I'm recovering from hip replacement surgery. Tomorrow it will be 2 weeks. Just to let the people in the room who don't know me, I am a registered nurse. I was a nursing instructor for 8 years for Harris Health. I used to teach CPR, ACLS. I've been trained in process improvement, and apparently I have chosen to, as, quote, I'm supposedly retired, I'm still have an active license. But anyway, I live at 14910 Lakeview Drive. It's the third place that I've lived in Jersey Village. And I just want to mention that my daughter Andrea lives 2 doors down from the house that was leveled. And my belief is that whole block on that low end of Wall Street is going to probably be gone one of these days, because I believe the house that was leveled, they sold it to FEMA, so there's no more building on that lot. All right, the reason that I'm here tonight is I want to thank Austin Police for firing Police Chief Eric Forrester, and I did a public information request before I went to surgery, and to ask for the termination letter for Eric Forrester. Sadly, I found it shocking that Eric was allowed to treat his department in the manner that he did for 10 years. And as I read the document, I was horrified at the way he acted, the things he said, and the things he did. And I believe that he probably, most likely, did something that was almost, I don't know if it's fraud, what he did about overtime pay. I think that that's probably what he did was illegal. I want you to know that I resent the fact that I and others paid his salary for 10 years. I believe that the mayor, city attorney, city managers were aware of what was going on. I don't know about city council. Over $8,000 had to be spent by a special investigator, David Luther, so that they could investigate whatever was going on, to investigate him and Lieutenant Dooley. It happens that I have been aware for a very long time about Eric Forrester's past, that he was he was the police chief in Vidor, Texas. I've been aware of Ron Dooley and Leah Hayes, and I'm not very happy about that these people were allowed to work for Jersey Village. I don't understand it, and I'm very sad that this has been going on. Anyway, I'm going to read a little bit of the letter until I'm stopped. Dear Chief Forrester, on September 16th, you were presented with my written complaints. The city hired an outside investigator to review these complaints. I have reviewed the results of the investigation and your responses to the allegations, and I've decided to terminate your employment. The basis for my decision is outlined below. I find that you have engaged in inappropriate behavior in your role as Chief of Police. Your management style has been derogatory and threatening toward employees. One example of this behavior is your statement to a group of officers that the bad news is that I'm not going to be fired, and the good news is I will get to fire all of you. You have given employees of other departments the incorrect impression that if you were displeased with them, you could terminate their employment with the city. An example of this behavior is when you informed court personnel that if they did not treat your officers better, it could result in a ticket slowdown that would cost them their jobs. You have misrepresented facts to me in justifying your refusal to provide training for the fire department employees by stating that the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement has instructed you that the Jersey Village Police Department could not legally provide field training to peace officers employed by Jersey Village Fire Department. The regional investigator for Southeast Texas indicated that your statement was incorrect, that the police department could provide such training, and that he recalled a specific conversation with Fire Chief Mark Fitz regarding this matter, but did not recall ever discussing this matter with you. You have also misrepresented facts to me by exaggerating the seriousness of a mistake by a Jersey Village dispatcher. You informed me that an improper arrest had been made because city warrant information was incorrectly provided by a dispatcher. You reported this incident to me and indicated that this was an extremely serious error and held the potential for a substantial liability for the city. This assertion proved to be untrue. The person was not detained based on a city warrant, and despite your assertion to the contrary, you failed to correct this initial report with me in a timely manner. Your action and inaction in this situation left me without necessary and pertinent information that would have corrected your inaccurate report. I also find that your mismanagement of the police department has resulted in excessive employee turnover. And by the way, I had a hunch that was true many moons ago. The attitude of your officers towards you is overwhelmingly negative. Of 18 current and former officers...
Your time, Marilee. Thank you.
Okay. And you all have copies, so please read them diligently.
Okay, we're gonna move into city manager's report. Does anyone on council have any questions, for the city manager? I have one comment I wanted to make. There was a great turnout for the Fall Frolic. I think, gosh, there must have been 2,000 people there. One thing I do want to say is we want to be careful with parking in the future going forward. It's very difficult on Jersey Drive to leave in one direction, so if there was ever an emergency. So just in the future, let's think about blocking off one side of the street for no parking. Other than that, you guys did a fantastic job this month. Read over the report, and anybody else have anything for city manager?
Just the one thing I wanted to note from the report that I found to be great was the golf course had revenues for October of over 130,000, and it's the first time that they've marked that high in October in since 2014. So congratulations to them. I feel like I say that often, that they've hit a record for a given month. They are doing a phenomenal job, and the numbers bear it out.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Going to move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items on the consent agenda they'd like to move to the regular agenda? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Let's move into the regular session. Item G1, consider ordinance number 2019-39, ratifying the agreement for interim police chief services with Strategic Government Resources and amending the general fund budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020 by increasing line items 01-21-5515 consultant services in the amount of $51,840. Austin Blee, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, since October 25th, the police chief position has been vacant. The fire chief at that point in time was named the acting public safety director. However, I strongly believe that we need a interim police chief to make sure that the department's running smoothly. So we've signed an agreement with SGR under the purchasing powers granted by the council to the city manager. So tonight I'm asking the council to ratify the agreement with SGR for the interim police chief services. We've also prepared a budget amendment to fund these services. The money for this comes out of the salary and benefits lines and placed into the consultant services line. So there's no change to the budget overall. We're just shifting money between the two lines. Right now the budget amendment covers 4 months of service. If more time is needed, staff will prepare an additional budget amendment at that point in time.
Any questions for Austin? All right, seeing none, looking for a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 2019-39.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 2, consider resolution number 2019-78, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Clark Condon for Phase 2 of the design and construction, management of the Gateway and Wayfinding Signs project. Jason Alfaro, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Mayor and Council, good evening. During the September 2018 City Council meeting, Council was presented with a statement of qualifications from Clark Condon. During the October 14th, 2019 meeting, City Council approved the City Manager to enter into a contract with Republic Masonry and Fencing for the first phase of that project. We're wrapping that up right now, and so the second phase of this project will include 8 total sign locations. 5 of these locations were previously explored in Phase 1, while 3 locations are new to Phase 2. 2 of the new locations identified in Phase 2 are the large gateway monuments, one at Eldridge and Highway 290, and the other at Philippine and Beltway 8. The last new location identified in Phase 2 is a small gateway monument at West Road and Highway 290. The costs in Phase 1 have stayed under budget, with Council allocating $1 million for each phase, so a total of $2 million for the project. In Phase 1, we budgeted $200,000 for the design and construction with Clark Condon, and construction bid at came in roughly at $279,000. For a total cost of $479,000 for the first phase of construction. Although we have completed designs on all sites of Phase 1, we still have 5 sites that we're working to obtain agreements and easements with Harris County and DOT. These sites will be delayed in the project just in order to obtain the appropriate agreements. The proposed contract with Clark Condon for the second phase has up to $130,000 for the preliminary design development, construction documents, bidding, and construction administration. It's estimated that we'll be out to bid on this project in summer of 2020. All of the bids would come back to council for approval prior to the work commencing as required. City staff recommends a motion to authorize the city manager to sign a contract with Clark Condon for Phase 2 of the design and construction management of the gateway and wayfinding signs. The recommended motion is before you to approve Resolution 2019-78, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Clark Condon for Phase 2.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason?
Jason, you said $479,000 has been spent on Phase 1?
Yes, sir. That includes the construction costs as well as the initial design development with Clark Condon.
What construction cost?
The construction costs that we had come back for bid from Republic last month.
We
don't have any construction at this point?
No, sir, not at this point. Right now, we're finalizing everything with contracts, Clark Condon and Republic. Hopefully, within the next week, we'll have everything squared away, start to commence.
How many phases are there?
Just 2.
So we'll have everything constructed at the end of Phase 2?
Yes, sir, that is the idea. The only issue that we still have are the 5 sites in Phase 1 that we're working with DOT and Harris County to obtain those easements and agreements on.
And we're expecting completion by when?
If we're going out to bid in summer of 2020, it would probably be about, I don't know, say 8 months after that, roughly. So the beginning of 2020?
Spring of 2021?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll hold you to that.
Jason, do you know about how soon we will start to see construction begin on Phase 1?
We're finalizing the contracts this week, and we hope to have we actually have a pre-construction meeting this week as well. So I would say within the next couple of weeks we could start to see a schedule and getting it on the contractor schedule. So I can't give you a date for sure, but with the holidays I would say for sure by January.
Okay, I know we get quite a few questions from people wanting to know when we're going to do something about the entrances, and I keep telling them, you know, this is a long process where we're getting to that point, and it would just be good to see something that they can see that's actually producing a result.
Most definitely, yes, sir.
Jason, you said you're working with TxDOT and Harris County for easement agreements and so forth. Is there any reason to think that those won't come through, or any problems associated with those?
No, sir. I think if anything, we may need to look at the locations where we have them, not necessarily moving the locations, and maybe moving them back off of 290 a little bit. But the consultants in Harris County and DOT, we've had some pretty good conversations, and I don't foresee a major issue with any of those. No, sir.
Any other questions?
Just one. Jason, with the design phase for Phase 1 was $200,000, and how many signs was that for?
It was for the design phase was for all of the signs in Phase 1. We were having some issues with the we still need a little bit of work done on some of the ones that we haven't nailed down with Harris County.
Okay, I was thinking, but the $130,000 for Phase 2, it seems, I mean, obviously that's less. Is there a reason why it's that much less than the $200K?
Yes, sir. Majority of the signs were actually put into Phase 1. In talking with Clark Condon, we were able to negotiate or actually deal with some of the funding for that and some of the cost estimates that came in. We looked at basically doing about 75% of the project in Phase 1.
I don't have in my head where all the locations are, but is there one for the south end of Jones Road where the new city hall is going to be built?
That would be part of the Village Center development, would be the ones funding for that, so not part of this project.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, looking for a motion on the resolution.
Move to approve Resolution 2019-78.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 3, consider resolution number 2019-79, authorizing the city to apply for FEMA FY19 FMA grant to elevate homes. Austin Blees, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, once again, we would like to continue the home elevations, grants program. This year proposing to elevate, 32 homes. The total grant amount requested would be $9,223,850. The city match would be $803,551. So the total project cost would be $10,027,401, which means the city's cost share would be about 8% of that. With our benefit cost analysis of 1.23 and staying below a federal grant request of $10 million, our grant application should be very competitive this year. However, that remains to be seen as to who else applies and everything along those lines. So we do have a presentation if the council would like to see a little bit more about the grant program in general. It's very similar to previous years, but happy to give that if the council would like, and the residents as well. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
We can go ahead and look at the presentation.
So once again, for this fiscal year, FEMA set aside $90 million in grant funding to implement measures to reduce flooding, including acquisition and demolition, elevations or mitigation reconstruction. They've also set aside $90 million for pre-disaster mitigation. Plan is the reduce or eliminate long-term flood losses. So for acquisition and elevations, FEMA pays 75% of the cost to elevate or buy out homes that are in the floodplain if the homeowner is insured. They pay 90% of the cost if the home is repetitive loss, or 100% if it's a severe repetitive loss. Repetitive loss property is a structure that is covered by flood insurance, has incurred flood-related damages on 2 occasions in which the cost of the repair, on average, equal or exceeded 25% of the market value of the structure at the time of the flood event, and at the time of the second incidence of flood-related damage, the contract for flood insurance contained the increased cost of compliance coverage. For severe repetitive loss, it's similar, but it's 4 times for claim payments having been made with at least exceeding $5,000, or at least 2 separate claims for building only that have been made, which with a cumulative amount of such claims exceeding the market value of the insured structure. And if it's that case, that makes it a high priority for these programs. Elevations is one of the most common retrofitting methods out there. When a house is elevated properly, the living area will be at least 36 inches above the base flood elevation. Base flood elevation is the 1% or the 100-year flood. Almost any home can be elevated, but the projects must be cost effective. It takes a lot of work going through the cost-benefit analysis to make sure that all of the homes are in a cost-effective, the group of homes is cost-effective. The eligible costs for elevations, I won't read all of these, but these are some of the big things that people ask about. Disconnecting utilities and extending utilities, reconnecting those, restoring the lawn for 4 pallets of seed and their seeding, restoring walkways, driveways, other surfaces that are outside the perimeter. It's broomed, brushed concrete only, no finishes. It covers the majority of things when it comes to elevating a home. Some of the ineligible costs are you can't elevate a structure that was not compliant with the NFIP standards when it was built. Costs related to building additions or auxiliary structures, including detached garages, construction of new decks or porches, or anything for aesthetic reasons. One thing to note is the exterior finish on exposed foundations at one point was covered. The state passed a law not allowing municipalities to require those types of things. So moving forward, it will not be covered under FEMA grants. And then it also does not apply for trees, shrubs, or anything like that outside of grass. So in order to be eligible, you have to have flood insurance. That's the FEMA requirement. The benefit cost analysis, it takes the cost of elevating the home and divides it by the amount of savings that the flood insurance program would expect to receive over the lifetime of that project. 30 years is the lifetime of an elevation project is kind of the FEMA standard. So we have to make sure that our benefit cost ratio, or benefit cost analysis is higher than 1. Right now, as I mentioned, it's a little over 1.2. Want to emphasize a few more times there's no guarantee of award. This is always a very competitive grant. So the timeline, we need to make application by this Friday. TWBD is the group we apply to. They review all the applications. They will submit all of their applications to FEMA by January 28th of 2020. We expect FEMA to make announcements in May of 2020. FEMA timelines slip, so that's when they're saying at the moment. So for this year's grant application, We took a look around everything. The long-term flood recovery plan identified approximately 60 homes that would be candidates for buyouts or elevations. We also looked at the 150 homes that would be repetitive loss or severe repetitive loss in the area. So we took all of that information and looking at everything that we're trying to do. In 2017, we tried to do a contiguous nature, which worked out fairly well. This year, we're looking at a little bit larger area. Based upon the cost-benefit analysis that we have of the 1.2, we feel like we can go up a little bit higher in the grant request and still have a very competitive grant application, even though they're not all contiguous. But we sent out questionnaires, so over the last few years, everybody has received questionnaires, and so right now that's where we're targeting with the 32 homes we're looking to apply for. So, staff recommendations, 31 homes that we're looking to apply for. The streets that they would be on would be Seattle, Crawford, Tenbury, Wall, Elwood, Hawaii, Capri, Tahoe, Acapulco, Jersey, North Tahoe, and Colwyn. It would require a match of $803,551. Previously, the city's authorized the match to come from city funds. The first year we authorized up to $400,000. Last year was $125,000. For this fiscal year that we're currently in, we set aside $600,000. So we could set aside more than that next year because elevations probably aren't going to start this fiscal year anyway. We have other flood monies, mitigation monies that we have out there too that we could move around as well. So the funding of that is certainly something we've been planning for the last few years. So in looking at the cost-benefit analysis, we feel we have a good mix while giving us the highest benefit that we can. We never know what we're going to be up against. Just some of the conversations I've had with other city managers that have applied for this historically, they're getting to a point in their homes where the cost benefit's not quite this high, so that helps me have a little bit better level of comfort. Similar as the previous years, elevations are preferable to buyouts unless buyouts can provide a greater benefit to reducing flooding elsewhere. So we're not opposed to buyouts, but it has to be in a contiguous area where we can do something later on with it, if it's a detention pond or that type of thing. So because a buyout means the city would have to own and maintain the property as a green space, that means lost property tax revenue and new maintenance costs. We looked at the possible buyouts along E100. We asked the flood control district if that'd be helpful when they're completing the E100 project, and for that project, they said it was not necessary. I want to emphasize that it was for that project and that project alone. It's possible that some buyouts could be necessary for the E127 project. So I want to reiterate that we're not opposed to this. We just want to make sure it makes sense. Other things to note, once again, it's a very competitive grant process. We may not receive the full award if we get anything at all, and it's possible FEMA could award funds for fewer homes than we apply for. So for future years, once again, the E100 project is being designed right now. Should be designed completion in March from what I'm hearing, so construction should hopefully begin next summer. That will change the maps in future years. We've got new maps coming out. There's a lot of moving pieces as it comes to flood maps, flood insurance ratings, and those types of things. And we still have the tear down rebuilds that we're looking at as well for some pieces of the community. We have some developers that seem to be interested in that, and hopefully we'll have some good information in the next few weeks over those types of things. So that's the brief presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have, or if anybody in the audience has any questions, my contact information is on the screen.
Austin, in the beginning when we were discussed the elevations, we split the areas or the homes in three different areas. You basically had three phases for the elevations. Can you explain the logic behind creating three different areas, and also why one was chosen first, second, and third?
Sure. So the logic between those three areas was that was kind of where the bulk of the 60 homes from the long-term flood recovery plan were. So 60 homes, 20 homes in each is kind of where we were thinking we wanted to be for home elevations. And just from a management perspective of trying to maintain or manage the grant application and keep our grants competitive.
So meaning it made it easier to get the grants by splitting it into 20?
Correct, because the cost-benefit ratio is the biggest thing that you want to get. The higher, the better. And we felt with splitting into those three, we'd have a better shot. As we've progressed over the years, looking at the mitigation, reconstruction as an option, and then with the E100 project actually happening, which back when we applied in 2017, I don't think any of us really thought the E100 project would be happening as soon as it did, that's changed our outlook on things a little bit. So all of the homes that we looked at back in 2017, they're still on an eligible list that we have that we could apply for at some point in time. Right now, as we've talked about a few times, we're looking at the Jersey Street from Lakeview to the pool as a potential tear-down rebuild area. Some of the homes in the Leeds and other areas, those are part of the streets that we're looking at for right now. So I think we all want to mitigate flooding as best we can, and at some point we would love to see all of these homes mitigated from future flooding.
So, again, the reason why one group of houses is chosen first and another second and another third?
It comes down to the cost-benefit analysis. A lot of work goes into trying to make sure we have a high cost-benefit ratio, so that the benefit is more than the cost.
So your highest CBR was the one you chose first? Or?
No, we try to take a long-term approach, try and get the houses with the data that we have. We can kind of do a rough benefit cost analysis of what it would be for each of those areas. So based upon all of the data that we have in the long-term flood recovery plan, we can do a pretty rough cost estimate as to which homes would be good. And so if you have a home that has a cost-benefit analysis of 2.5, like some homes do, and a cost-benefit analysis of one that has, 0.5, you can put those homes in the same project, and the project as a whole has a really good cost-benefit analysis. So doing a lot of that pre-work to try and group things as best we can, and then go to the residents and see who's interested and who's not. We've had a few residents say that they're not interested at all in a home elevation, so that kind of changes the formula on things a little bit sometimes.
Okay, what I'm getting is that your cost-benefit analysis urged you to, or moved you in the direction of putting these homes between Senate and Lakeview on Jersey Drive in the first phase?
Right. For the first phase back in 2017, that was what looked to be the best option at that point in time.
Okay.
Austin, something that might help. So I would imagine it probably costs more to do elevations of homes that are, say, a mile apart from one another, as opposed to homes that are right next to one another. Is that accurate?
There might be some costs. It's hard to really kind of extrapolate what those would all be, especially when you're trying to apply for the grant fundings. The contractors might have different things, but it would stand to logic that would be part of it.
So if you had all of the things being equal, you try to get homes that are fairly close together in groups to present in the grant application.
If you can, and then you've got everybody in that area being elevated at nearly the same time.
And you're not presenting all of your most needed homes all at once, because then you would have a tremendous cost-benefit ratio for one application, but then the rest would have very little chance of succeeding because you wouldn't have the other really needy properties there to help elevate the ones that are not as bad off, right?
Absolutely correct, yes, sir.
So, so the fact that I noticed here in 2017 it was 1.52, which is great. 1.31 for the 2018 application, a little lower. That's not by design. That's probably just more the way everything worked out with the numbers.
Right.
Okay. So the goal here obviously is we don't know who else is going to apply, and at the end of the day, it's just a ranking based on the cost-benefit ratio and however much money there is and whichever ones they decide they're going to fund. Right. If you have too low of a number and the money runs out, you lose out, right?
Correct.
So that's generally what you're trying to do, is just make sure that we're in the money, staying just high enough that each application still has enough homes in it that have serious issues that will be able to keep all of our grant applications successful.
Correct.
He's got a pretty good track record at it so far.
It looks pretty good to me.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Austin? I had a question about the tear-down rebuild project that we've kind of thought outside the box and tried to approach East Jersey Drive in a different manner than the other ones, because FEMA takes a long time for grants to happen. And I mean, we applied for the FY 2017 grants 2 years ago, and they're finally getting underway 3 years, almost 3 years later. Where do we stand on that project, and and where I'm going with this is, do we have a deadline where if it's just not gonna work out, then we can add those homes to an elevation list of some kind?
I don't have any firm deadlines, but I believe that we'll know within the next 6 months or so if this project, the tear down and rebuild, would work. I guess that puts us to June-ish of next year. Plenty of time if we want to add those homes into home elevations for the next fiscal year. But I think we'll have plenty of at least anecdotal information as to whether or not there's any interest in that.
Any other questions for Austin? All right. Seeing no further questions, I'm looking for a motion on the resolution.
I move to approve resolution 2019-79.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 4, discuss and take appropriate action concerning the progress report from the owners of property located at 16884 Northwest Freeway, Jerseyville, Texas, concerning the progress on the performance of the permitted work required under ordinance number 2019-11. Christian Summers, building official.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'll give you an update from myself before Kathleen. Last week I went through the site, met the GC. He brought in roughly 4 dumpsters, each 40 cubic yards, started hauling off furniture. They're stripping away furniture first, then fixtures. Then cleanup crews are going through. They're going through each room. They're removing substantial amounts of drywall and some insulation, and then it will be retested. I inquired about security. He requested he be allowed to park his later model fifth wheel on site and remain on site. I agreed that would be a good idea for security purposes, and he'll be available at all times if I need him. Building 1 will be tackled first in regards to reconstruction. That's the building connected to the lobby/offices and behind Taqueria Cervantes. The lot will be mowed and maintained bi-weekly, including the rear of buildings 2 and 3. Those are the ones that are contiguous with the church, where we've had issues with maintenance in the past, as well as pool maintenance. They're going to monitor that. Any questions? If not, I'll turn it over to Kathleen.
Anybody have any questions for Christian?
Christian, you talked about a fifth wheel being parked. You said you didn't see a problem with that, but is there code requirements, permit for that? They apply for that?
It's not in zoning district A, in single family residential, so it's fine.
Okay. Is there a time limit they can leave that there?
I'm not aware of a time limit. I'm not aware of anything in the development ordinances that disallows it. But I would treat it as if it were a construction trailer, just associated with the permit.
Okay.
Just seeing in the memo here that in our last meeting, we essentially said what we wanted to see was the picking up of the master building permit, payment of hotel taxes, adequate fencing to secure the property during construction, and it's saying that the master building permit was picked up. Hotel taxes have not been paid, and there's a paragraph here, but in a nutshell, temporary construction fencing has been secured to the point that construction activity should start soon. So 2 out of 3.
Yeah, hotel taxes have not been paid. They recently sent Isabel Finance, the finance department, I guess, an invoice for, with $0, not an invoice, but.
Yes, they sent out.
Can't hear you. They don't have any, occupants or tenants,
Yes.
so it's $0.
So they sent a paper with the report with $0, but they owe the taxes from before.
2018, they owe the taxes for, which they sent to the city of Houston, as well as early 2019, which they haven't paid.
Yeah.
So, well, they haven't paid both, but at least one they sent to the city of Houston.
And you can essentially hold their occupancy permanent until that's paid, or what can the city do to make sure that those
I would
are
need
paid?
to consult with legal.
They owe taxes and they fees. 'Cause they
And you can
haven't
put a
paid.
lien or.
Right, and so the normal kind of things you do on delayed taxes, but the state is the one's gonna have the bigger hand in that issue, so.
All right, any other questions for Christian? Okay.
Good evening. What Mr. Summers said is correct. Demolition of Building 1 has taken place. They've removed the contaminated sheetrock, all furnitures and fixtures. They were to work on the stairwell and walkways today of Building 1, and also they will be starting on Building 2, same kind of process this week as well. With regards to the taxes, I think they've reached out, so I'm hoping that will be taken care of quickly. However, again, you know, they do appreciate the city's patience with them in getting this project done, and it's underway, and it seems that things are going a little bit more smoothly and more quickly as the city would like, I'm sure.
Any questions?
Is your job getting easier?
I will say, it gets colder in this room every time I come. I think you're trying to freeze me out. But yes, my job's getting a little bit easier.
All right, do we want to discuss another progress report next month? What's everyone's feelings on council?
Every month till it's finished.
I think the question would be, do we need a progress report from Christian or from the attorney as well?
Good point. I think just, if it were my preference, Christian gives good updates and just to let us know how it's going every month. And then if there's some sort of reason why we would need to have the attorney return, then we can do that.
Okay, I will let them know. I have a feeling they're still going to ask me to be here, but not a problem, we understand.
But it's totally up to you. I just don't want to
I live here, so it's okay.
add expense to it, so.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Kathleen, the next meeting then is December the 16th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, it's going to move us into mayor and council comments. I'm going to start down with Gary.
The only comment I have is welcome aboard to Police Chief Riggs.
Welcome aboard. Congrats to the city employee of the month. Fabulous job by the fire department. I always appreciate citizens who come up and give comments. Some excellent points were made. Thank you to those that take their time to do that.
If I could say mega dittos to what you guys said, and thank you, Gary, and the fire department for your excellent job, not only on the house fire on Jersey, but each and every day. You guys do a fabulous job.
I'd just like to welcome our interim police chief, Chief Riggs. Welcome.
I'd echo that. Welcome, Chief Riggs, and thank you to the fire department for your excellent work. No surprise there, but it's always good to see that, and thank you, Curtis, for coming and telling us the first-hand story about that. I also wanted to thank our Scout BSA troop, if I'm getting that right with the name change. Thank you so much for coming out. Congratulations, you picked a good meeting because this is a fairly short one by comparison.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out and giving up your evening to sort of watch us sit up here and make decisions. It's always good to have the audience participate as much as you guys did. Thanks for all the people who comment and come up and say a few words. Thank you to the fire department for your work this month on that house fire. Chief Riggs, thank you for coming out and welcome. I do know that there is, as far as an event goes, there's Jason, you can help me out with this, but there's an event on December 13th that's s'mores and a movie, Holiday in the Park.
Yes, sir.
S'mores. You had me at s'mores.
S'mores.
So, citizens, bring out your kids, bring out your grandkids. Sounds like a really fun time. I'm really loving these new traditions in our city, and look forward to more of it. And with that, we're going to move into executive session. We're going to recess the regular session and move into executive session. The crowd, you are welcome to leave. You don't have to sit through all that. So let me read this real quick. City Council is now going to retire to a closed session at 7:59 p.m. pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551 real property, and section 551.071, consult with attorney in connection with the following item. Number one, pursuant with Texas Open Meetings Act, section 551.072, deliberations about real estate, and section 551.071, consultations with attorney, a closed meeting to deliberate the possible exchange, sale, or value of property located at Res D 1 through 5 of Block 3, Directors LT, Northwest Station, section 1. Number two, pursuant Texas Open Meetings Act, section 551.071, consultation with attorney, conduct a private consultation in a closed meeting with its attorney about contemplated litigation and matters in which the duty of the attorney or under the Texas disciplinary or professional conduct conflicts with the act related to the police chief. We will return to open session and continue the remainder of tonight's agenda after the closed session deliberations are concluded. All right, the closed session was adjourned at 8:45 p.m. and no official action or vote was conducted during the closed session. We're going to reconvene the regular session, and item number one, discuss take appropriate action regarding the possible exchange, sale, or value of property located at Res D1 through 5, Block 3, Directors LT, Northwest Station, Section 1. There was no action taken. Item number two, discuss take appropriate action on the item deliberated in the executive session regarding contemplated litigation and matters in which the duty of the attorney under the Texas disciplinary or professional conduct conflicts with the act related to the police chief, and no action was taken on that. That leads to adjournment. Thank you very much.